All right, let's bring in tonight's panel, our regular Thursday panel, National Senator M.Canavan and WA Opposition Leader Basil Zempilas. Just to pick up on what Susan Lee was just speaking about, Matt, you listened to her answer there on energy policy, not having one at the moment and the process they're going through. I mean, this comes as just today you introduced your own members' bill to repeal net zero. What's your assessment on how the Liberals are going to arrive at a position that you know, the Nationals would be satisfied with?
Well, look, I think the best solution to this issue, almost to any contentious issue, is to talk it out. Lots of times in life you have disagreements with people you love. I often don't always agree with my wife, and I love her if she's watching, but you know, the best thing to do when there is that dispute is to talk the issue out, to actually communicate. And the problem we find ourselves in, Sharri, is we have never had a debate on net zero in the joint party room. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. It's one of the most radical, I think, socialist policies that a government has ever imposed on Australia. It effectively means the government will have to decide what you can eat, how you can drive, how things are made. That's socialism. And the Liberal and National Party room have never debated this socialist plan. So, look, all I've been asking for nearly 4 years now is let's just have a debate. And obviously I've got certain views that I'll forthrightly put forward, but I think that is the best way to resolve something that is causing tension among otherwise trusted partners.
Basil, I don't think I've ever asked you about this issue. Do you think net zero needs to be repealed? Do you think the federal government has gone too far on renewables?
I think we need to be very careful, and I'm on the record as saying that the Liberal Party broadly, and certainly here in Western Australia, has not appealed to enough younger voters and has not appealed to enough women, and in many instances has not appealed to enough people in the city. So we need to be very careful about winding those things back when we know so many Australians care about our environment, they care about emissions. And I think net zero has become a phrase that captures the casual observer in this space. And so the language is important. I've got to say, look, Susan Lee is the leader. She is not into being rushed at the moment. She's made her case very clearly. She's working to her timetable. That is her prerogative. Others would rather her move along more quickly. Matt is one of them. But she is entitled to go to her timetable, and that's what she's doing. And that is her prerogative. So let's see when we see is the best way to describe it, I think.
The only thing I'd say in response to that is it's, you know, fine to take your time with reviews, but this is the worst government we have had, and we need an opposition to argue against them, and they can't do that properly without knowing their own policies. You've got to have your own policy before you can take the fight to the government. So, you know, immigration, the classic point, immigration. You know, Paul Scar was on with Chris Kenny this week, and Chris Kenny said, well, what do you think the immigration number could be? And he went, I don't know. We don't know yet. That's the issue.
Well, Sharri, I mean, I think it's deeper than that.
Also,
because,
though,
no, I mean, notionally...
Right,
OK, M.Canavan, you go.
All right, we'll go in order. Yeah, look, I think it's deeper than that because we notionally remain committed to net zero emissions. It's not just that we're reviewing it or that we've got we're waiting to see. We remain committed to it, as Basil said. And while you remain committed to the same pathway the government's on, it's very hard to criticise them for the outcomes, the clear deleterious outcomes that are occurring in our energy market through the loss of jobs in industries, including in Basil's state. We lost our nickel industry. And it's fine for Basil to say, let's worry about people in the cities. What about the 10,000 people who lost their jobs in the nickel industry? Because we remain committed to this green energy rubbish. That was explicitly because BHP signed up to green energy, massively increased the costs in our nickel industry and couldn't compete with Indonesia powered by coal-fired power. I think those people deserve someone to fight for them, right?
Basil?
And I think it's a bit patronising to say, oh, women and young people believe this. Well, it's our job to convince people and lead. It's not just our job to follow. We get paid big bucks. And those big bucks should be to try and actually convince the Australian people of what we think is right, not just what we think they want to hear.
Basil, you want to respond to that?
And Matt, that's what you're entitled to, your opinion. That's what you think is right. As we know, the Libs have a review on. And this rush for policy inside three... Susan made the point. It is at the 3-month mark. And so everybody that's calling for this policy is calling for it inside 3 months
of a
catastrophic election.
It's actually 4 months, isn't it? The election was in May. 4 months, but...
4 months, a leadership change, putting the band back together. We know what happened with the Nats, so they were in, then they were out. You haven't exactly helped this situation, Matt, on your own. And therefore, Susan is entitled to get these things in order to her timetable. And she is the leader. She can do it. And in the end, she gets judged on exactly that.
All right. And we will be fair about that, as always. OK, I want to pick up on the Daniel Andrews conversation because, you know, we've spoken about this a lot over the past couple of days. But here is a really important point that I think is worth highlighting. A woman called Helen Shao is a survivor of the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. And she wrote a piece in the Herald today. She said she watched with horror as Daniel Andrews prostituted himself to gain the friendship of some of the world's most notorious dictators. She says there he was, standing in the same square where my friends were murdered, shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, while China rolled out its military hardware for the world to see. It made my blood boil. I just think that is so well said. M.Canavan, it was a disgrace to see any senior Australian there.
It's extremely poor judgment from Dan Andrews. I mean, even his fellow traveller, Bob Carr, eventually came to his senses and realised that it was a terrible look for former Australian leaders, former Australian premiers, to be giving a sense of credence to what was a dictator's parade, effectively, there. That piece that you've referenced was extremely powerful, and encourage others to read it. An Australian now, a proud Australian, who suffered 36 years ago at the hands of this same dictatorial regime. So it's one thing to go on trade visits, and normally on those sort of trade visits we would still speak up for human rights and put our point of view to China. But instead, Dan's gone on a backslapping exercise here with a very military that has conducted and engaged in terrible human rights abuses over the years.
And the other thing is, Basil, that, you know, we saw their military modernisation, all of their weapons that would be used against America and its allies if America chooses to step in and defend Taiwan.
Yes, the look was shocking. It was tone deaf from Dan Andrews, effectively putting influence and connections and ultimately probably financial gain through the business interest that he has in that jurisdiction above everything else. He has to live with that. I mean, everything you need to know about it is evident from the Australian government sending formally no representative. Clearly, Australia and China continue to have relations. That is sensible and productive, and they're a big trading partner. We get all of those things. But sharing that stage with the leader of Russia, with the leader of North Korea, and the leader and the Iranian leader, just a shocking look for Dan Andrews. And ultimately, he wears that on his own. It's on his conscience. If he feels comfortable enough doing it and that he's going to be okay when he comes home, that's on him. It was his choice. And a terrible look that's been condemned by everybody else.
Yeah, it'll damage his credibility.
Except the Prime Minister, Basil. The Prime Minister hasn't condemned it.
True. Good call. Good call. And we don't have time to...
Good point.
We don't have time to discuss it tonight, but everyone needs to read The Telegraph and the Courier Mail tomorrow because, M.Canavan, you've got a fascinating article on migration and how the Prime Minister promised to halve it, but what the figures are really looking like. So...
It's not one of those M.Canavan cartoons, is it? I still can't understand that from a couple of weeks ago.
No, we'll have to see if he's done any more.
No, it's much more sensible and legible. It's not in Japanese. I haven't written it in Hirayana.
Okay.
That's a help. All right, M.Canavan and Basil Zamplis, great to see you. Now, still to come, where does the Waverley Mayor plan to remove shark nets? Which beach? I'll ask him shortly. Plus, a Sydney hospital launches an investigation into a cardiologist sprouting conspiracy theories. That's after this quick break.
Glencore believes mining matters for every Australian. Last year, Glencore spent over $19